What's going on, everyone? Today we're here with Dynast Amir. Now, this brother, he frequently travels to Africa. He has so much footage that I don't know why he haven't made an epic documentary yet. Maybe we could ask him that question because he has a lot of footage, and we want to ask him a lot of questions about African spirituality, the overall perception of the people of him going over there being an African American. So, brother, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me, Phil. Thank you so much. I really
All
appreciate
right.
it.
So, when did you have the desire to first travel to Africa?
Actually, it was somewhat. It wasn't really planned. I mean, originally I was planning on going to Brazil. So, and I do sales in corporate America, and a good friend of mine told me like, "Hey, you've been hitting your sales quota. You're making a decent amount of money. How about taking a vacation?" And so I was originally my intent was to go to Brazil and have fun and party and hook up with a bunch of chicks, but my guy, the person that was going to take me there, or I was going to meet there to show me around, she backed out. So, one of my buddies that's been to Tanzania, he spent a lot of time in Tanzania. He suggested that I travel to Tanzania. So I looked it up, I researched it, and I said, you know what, let's book the tickets and let's go. So my first trip in 2011 was to Tanzania, and I absolutely loved it. And I told myself that I will continue to go back to Africa and see as many countries as possible um, before I die.
Now, speaking of Tanzania, I watched maybe almost an hour long documentary about Tanzania, and I was so pissed off after watching that.
Okay.
And what I saw was you had Arabs over there acting like a bunch of Klan members to the black people. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah. So what we have to understand, and I speak about this a lot on my channel, um, especially in East Africa, Indians, Chinese, and Arabs pretty much control the economy in a lot of these countries in East Africa. And we roll out the carpet for them whenever they come to Africa, as far as wanting to do business, wanting to partake in business opportunities and develop Africa itself. But when Africans go to their country, we get treated like, can I cuss on your show?
Yeah, you can say certain words. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, we get treated like shit. And I think African leaders do a terrible job in regards to regulating that. I mean, it should be no way where we allow, foreigners who don't have the best interest of Africans at our heart into our country, let them come in and let them make money, let them exploit Africa. We roll out the red carpet. They're disrespectful as hell to us, and we give it a pass. We allow it. But then when we go to their country, it's not reciprocated, and to the point where we can't develop industries. We're shut out the market, and to the point where we're pretty much ran out and even abused. And the African leaders don't do anything about it. So it's more, you need to put the blame more on the African leaders because they allow it and they protect it. Non-Africans or non-indigenous Africans are pretty much well protected in Africa by African governments, which is ludicrous.
It is, because we have in Africa, this is admitted by a racist, and I posted on our Twitter, even a racist admits Africa is the wealthiest continent in the world.
Absolutely.
With the endless amount of resources, even though this continent have been raped and pillaged and colonized for hundreds upon hundreds of years. Now, what you just said is the same problems we deal with in America. We don't want to receive each other. We'll fight each other. We'll kill each other. But then other groups come in. They'll manipulate you and play games like they like you because we want to be everybody else's friend and let them come into our situations. Then they come with ill intent. But then you get like the Arabs over there treating the people in Tanzania like some 1950s, trust me, I watched that and I'm going to have to post that to my website. I just could not believe that they were treating black people that way. And these Arabs was calling themselves white. Like, where the hell you get that from?
Well, I mean, the majority Arabs, even here in America, identify as white. So, I mean, that's where it comes from. In the reality, I mean, they are, for the most part, they posture themselves as they're white. They conduct themselves as they're white, and they have, I guess, that white superiority complex when they come over to Africa and look down upon indigenous Africans in the countries, in the continent. So yeah, I mean, that's just how they operate.
Yeah, but see, that's why I always said that you need more leaders like Robert Mugabe
Right.
to run the continent. Forget it.
Right.
You may not like the way he do some things, but he not letting everybody come in and take up stuff in Zimbabwe.
Right, and it was, and the great thing about Zimbabwe too that they don't speak upon. Yeah, Zimbabwe had for a minute, you know, they were having issues with inflation. Now they're doing okay. So when he kicked out the farmers, you know, it was somewhat unstable, the country itself. But now they've passed through that, and they're actually doing pretty well. But the media won't talk about that. They'll just focus on when Mugabe kicked out the farmers, reclaimed the land, and then of course Zimbabwe went through its periods of heavy inflation. But now they've gone through that. They rode out the storm, and Zimbabwe's doing pretty well now.
Yeah, let's be clear. He kicked out the Caucasian farmers.
Like Caucasian farmers, right?
Yeah, no, we don't want to say farmers because he was like, look, you're not going to come over here and try to own land, but then also be living in Europe as well. He had an issue with that.
Exactly.
And that's a lot of them do that. They go to African nations, want to buy up a bunch of land. They don't stay there, or they're not even really helping out the economy of these African nations. And unfortunately, because we have a lot of what we call sellouts and coons, even in Africa, that's why it's still suffering today.
Absolutely.
Now, which is sickening, because, you know, a lot of times you have these racists here in America say, well, why don't you guys go back to Africa if you don't like it over here? Like, look, if I get to Africa, I don't want to see you. Exactly. So, like, what's the point? Sometimes.
It was crazy, even with, I mean, and not to change the subject, let's look at Colin Kaepernick. So when he took his knee, they told him, you know, hey, if you're not happy with the country, get out, go to Africa if you're not happy. He goes and visits Africa, and then they're like, oh, you're not African, you're American. So you're just dealing with a sociopathic people. So, you know, there's no reason to try to rationalize with a racist. It's just, it defeats the point. You know, you damn if you do, damn if you don't. So that's just how they operate. You stay, they want you to go to Africa. You go, you're not African, come back to America. That's just how they operate.
Right, and I'm a firm believer of they just want to hold us hostage, because I thought about that real heavy, brother, about why after slavery ended, didn't they just ship us all back? Because they could have shipped us back, and we wouldn't have had no choice in the matter.
They don't. I mean, they need us. I mean, you got to think about it. If black people were to completely disconnect and leave America, America will fall, and they know it. So that's why.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that, because they would never admit that. But even the great Marcus Garvey was trying to do the same thing. Why did J. Edgar Hoover stop him? Right? Mm-hmm. We didn't have rights back then. So if we were the Negro problem, as they coined us, then you should have helped Marcus to get us all out of here.
Exactly. But
instead of trying to charge him with mail fraud, which is a BS charge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so now I saw one of your videos when he had a Voodoo festival.
Yeah.
And when these colonizers came to a lot of African nations, they came in and say, "Oh, voodoo is evil," and only worship the white Jesus idol because that's an idol because Jesus was not white. Anybody who studied the scriptures and would know he was nowhere near white. Okay, so what is it about voodoo that scared the Caucasian?
The power behind it. You have to understand, like European white people call it the occult, but basically what they call the occult they got from us, which is voodoo. So they took our religion, voodoo, they utilized it to gain power, and then they gave us Christianity. Um, so that's what they're afraid of is that if black people, if we start to follow our indigenous religion, which was given to us by our ancestors, the power behind that and what it would do would I mean it would cause Europeans would not be happy. So that's why they took away our religion, our indigenous religion, and gave us Christianity.
So when you got around at that voodoo festival, what did you learn about voodoo that maybe you had some misconceptions of?
I mean, everything we see on TV is a complete misconception. It's not dark, as they say. I mean, it's not a bunch of devil worship. I mean, you don't have people playing with dolls and putting curses and vexes on people. I mean, voodoo is love. Voodoo is our original religion. There's no, you don't have to argue and debate what color our I guess our gods, they're not really gods, or say our ancestors who are part of voodoo and who created voodoo are, But to this day, we're arguing and debating what color Jesus is, what color Muhammad is, when you have a religion that was crafted specifically for you. This is the FUBU of religion. Our religion is for us, by us. It's voodoo or any type of African indigenous religion. And it's just sad the way we've been brainwashed to not accept it. You don't understand. When I was telling African Christians that I was going to the voodoo festival, like their faces, like, oh my God, be careful. Or, oh my God, when I used to live in the bush, there used to be this old woman that used to practice voodoo and she used to shapeshift. And, I don't know where they get this stuff from, but it was nothing but love. And everything they show us on TV is it's just false.
Right, because they never show us the beauty of African nations either. I always want to show is the people who are rural areas, poor, don't have anything. Now I know, and that's not true what they show
Right.
at all. Because if it was so horrible about Africa, then why they won't stay out of there? Like you said, the Chinese and the Caucasian and the Arab and all these different the Russians and all the other ones that keep coming in African nations. So, what is the most beautiful place you've seen in an African nation in your travels?
I love Zanzibar. I mean, the beaches are beautiful. The food is delicious. The women are beautiful. I'm a big fan of Zanzibar, and that's an island right off in the Indian Ocean, right off the coast of Tanzania. So that's the most beautiful place that I've been to during my travels in Africa. Zanzibar by far.
Okay, so you have a family?
Yes, I have a son.
You have a son. Okay, all right. So you married?
No, I'm single, but me and the mother we co-parent and we work together very well. So no issues at all.
Okay, no. The only reason I asked that question, and I know it's getting kind of personal, because since you're going to African nations a lot, do you think you would actually meet a woman from over there and bring her back?
I wouldn't bring her back. I would leave her over there. Reason why is just I mean, once she gets over here, I mean, she's able to, I guess, leverage the marriage laws, which, yeah, I wouldn't. No.
I get exactly what you're saying. So, oh boy, okay.
Yeah.
So, basically, what you're saying is, you rather if you met her and got with her there, you rather her stay there, and then maybe you just possibly even go back and live over there, and then her be exposed to the American feminism and all the other mess that's over here in this country that could screw stuff up.
Exactly. So that too, just the marriage laws, the feminism, I mean, pretty much everything that can be a bad influence. And taint a good African woman. Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, she could come over here and visit, but I wouldn't allow her to live here because again, you got to deal with the marriage laws and just the bad influence that could taint an African woman. So no, I wouldn't do it.
You know, and I've heard stories like that about foreign women from different nations. They came over here, they were just great in a certain way, and they been over here a few years, and all of a sudden they just acting worse than the people that was born here.
Sure. In fact, when I was in LA, one of my customers, he has a restaurant, and he told me he's from Mexico, and he said he brought his Mexican wife to LA, and she divorced him and hit him over the head. So he told me, don't do it. So I'm gonna take his advice and I do it.
As I said, that is very interesting. But you know, yeah, this system is it's pretty toxic and is very anti-family. The whole setup, you know, is definitely against us as men in general, and definitely times two against us as black men.
Right.
Because anybody could, you get in America long enough and you get indoctrinated with the propaganda and everything, you would hate black men with a passion.
Right.
It's kind of easy to.
Exactly. So that's why I wouldn't even, anybody that's watching this, I would not recommend bringing your African wife over here. You leave her over there, you go visit, you allow her to come over here and visit. You send money and support her, but do not allow her to live over here because, again, if it hits the fan, just dealing with you hear the horror stories of just going through divorce court and child support, and yeah, it's not worth it.
Yeah, and I'm a brother that know all about that. I've been through the worst of the worst with that, and these laws in this country is very anti-family and definitely anti-men. But outside of that situation, a lot of brothers, please listen to that because some of y'all was talking about Brazil. Just what he was talking about Brazil. Mm-hmm. Don't bring them back over here from what my brother's saying.
But there, spend some time over there, as much time as you can, but do not bring them back. I would not recommend it.
Well, I don't know with Donald Trump, you may not be able to bring them back anyway.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So outside of that issue, I guess a lot of men could take that advice how they want to take it. Do you see yourself relocating to Africa itself?
I would say yes. If not permanently, it will be sometime. I was spending some time, probably half and half. Sometime here in the States, and then sometime over there. So literally 6 months out of the year, or 5 to 6 months out of the year here in America, and then the remainder in Africa. But and slowly do that, and then fully transition to Africa, but not completely disconnect myself from America. There's still resources, just being an American, that you could leverage and utilize that will help you be successful, even more successful in Africa.
So when you go over there, how is the overall reception to the people? Because the moment you speak, they know you're American, obviously.
Yeah.
So what's the overall reception of the people to you?
Actually, that's not true. When I speak, at first they think I'm either South African or Nigerian. And then,
really?
Yeah. And then I have to tell them I'm American. So this is what I tell people. When you get off the plane, they're going to think you're one of them until you open your mouth. Once you open your mouth, they think you're either Nigerian or South African. That's been my experience. But the reception is great. I mean, they love you. Welcome home, brother. I haven't had any issues. I know there's this myth that I guess Africans and African Americans have a beef. I don't know how that started, or I haven't how it started, but it's exaggerated. It's just heavily exaggerated. It's really, like I said, it's a myth. It's not an issue at all, in my honesty. I have no issues at all. I mean, you don't understand how many Africans reach out to me as far as how they love the work I'm doing, how they want to get involved, how they think it's a great idea for African American diaspora to reconnect to Africa, how they would love for us to come over and help build. So the reception has been beautiful.
Now, when you heard them tell you welcome home, did it get to you a little bit?
It did. It's definitely a surreal experience when you walk out of that airport. I mean, it's just when I first went to Tanzania, landed at Dar es Salaam, went through passport control, walked out the airport, and it's just when that African heat hit me, I don't know, it was a surreal experience. I can't really explain it. And people who've been to Africa, they understand the experience. And then, you walk outside the airport, the native Tanzanians, they're Tanzanians, they're, selling, you need a SIM card in their language. They'll come up to you, ask you to need a SIM card. What do you need? You need a cab. And then I don't speak Swahili, so I kind of just looked at them, and then they started speaking English. Then they asked me where I'm from. They asked me if I was Nigerian or South African. I told them, no, I'm from America. And they were like, welcome home, brother. So, it's a surreal experience. I think it's one that really can't put into words, but those who have made that journey back can really feel or understand what I'm talking about by, the first time you go and you leave that airport. And I feel like this every time I go. When I walk outside of that airport and that African heat hits me, I'm just like, oh man, I'm back. The ancestors inside of me, they're just happy to be home. So
let me ask you a question. What's the first country you think that if a person had never been to an African nation, what nation you recommend them to visit first?
I would do Tanzania or Kenya. English-speaking countries. East Africa is less, in my honest opinion, less expensive than West Africa as far as cost of living, hotels, just everyday living. It's kind of like living in California or living in Georgia. The cost to eat, hotel, live, bed and breakfast or whatnot, tourist guides, whatever you need, will be more expensive in California than it would be, we'll say, Alabama or Georgia. So it's more cost effective, and plus also in places like Tanzania, there's more to do. So you have Dar es Salaam, which is a beautiful city. Then you go to Zanzibar, which is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen or been to. And then you go to Arusha, which is the gateway to Serengeti if you're into safaris, or climb Mount Kilimanjaro, which I did also if you're an adventurous person. So I would say Tanzania will give you more bang for your buck. Or if you don't want to do Tanzania, you can always do Kenya. But I would definitely recommend Tanzania.
You said Kenya just now?
Well, yeah, Kenya's cool. I like Kenya. Kenya's cool. But if it's I would say this: if it's your first time going to Africa, and you have, a week and a half, maybe two. I would say a week and a half. I would say go to Tanzania because it's more diverse and you can experience more.
Okay, now have you ever been to Nigeria yet?
I have not, but I plan on going next year to Benin City.
Okay. Now, when you came back to the States after being over there the first time, what was your initial thoughts about Africa versus America?
I would say the cost of living, it's a slower pace, which is a good thing. People weren't and when I say slower pace, don't get me wrong, Africans get to it. They work their ass off. In fact, Africans are the hardest working people on the planet, in my honest opinion. From what I said, this idea that Africans are lazy, that they put out, this lie, this stereotype is bullshit. Africans are the hardest working people on the planet. But what I noticed, they weren't stressed out. So it's like you're over there, everybody's cool, calm, relaxed, but they're working hard. You get to America, people are stressed out, people are exhausted, people aren't happy. So that's the difference I noticed just among people, how people in America, even though we might have more resources, we have access to a lot of things that a lot of people don't have access to. People over here are very stressed out. The suicide rate over here, like they don't commit suicide. I'm not saying they don't, but it's unheard of to hear people committing suicide in Africa. But here in America, it's like you have young people committing suicide and they're stressed out and they're just worn out and they're just tired. They're not enjoying life. They're not happy. In Africa, everybody was happy. and that's what really stuck out. No matter what, everybody was happy. So I adopted that to my life.
Yeah, and what you basically just describing is those who are in leadership and rule over this country, how it's just oppressive and ungodly, and that's why the people just aren't happy and the things that's going on in this nation versus African nations. And you're right. Suicide is not something that Africans believe in,
No,
and even in America, African Americans have the lowest suicide rates
exactly.
than anybody else. Because for us, you kill yourself, you're going to hell. So we ain't trying to go to hell. So we just, that's something we just really don't want to practice. And now you see some young kids are doing that here and there, but a lot of them haven't had some of the teachings, at least that some people maybe from my generation would initially have. Right. But brother, let me ask you one more question about Africans and them being more community oriented versus African Americans being so individualistic.
Right.
What was the overall vibe in African nations with the basis of community?
Everybody knew each other. Like I give you an example. I live in Atlanta. It's weird. You never see kids playing in the street anymore. It's odd. People really don't know their neighbors. But in Africa, everybody knows everybody. Everybody spends time with everybody. It's the African community now is probably how the Black communities were back in the 50s, as far as tightly knit and very close. So again, everybody knows everybody. Kids are in the street playing. People are watching over each other. Taking care of each other's kids, looking after each other. Versus here, it's just, I think what the issue is here in America, everybody is just grinding so hard that they only have time to really focus on themselves. But I think the main thing again is just, you have a community, but just not seeing. I mean, when I was little, we would go out in the streets, we'll play football, we'll wrestle in the front yard. You don't see that anymore. It's weird. I guess everybody's inside playing PlayStation or on their phones. But over there, everybody interacts with everybody. And you have a community, everybody knows each other, everybody speaks to each other. That's another thing. Everybody speaks to each other. Here in Atlanta, when I first moved to Georgia, because in California, you really didn't speak to the people that you knew them, because it's like you say what's up to somebody, and they're like, what's up? Like, what do you want? When I first moved to Georgia, everybody spoke to each other. That's why you get Southern hospitality. Now it's changed. Like, you'll say what's up or hello to somebody you don't know. Because whenever I see a Black man, I speak to him. But now I see a Black man, I don't care what his condition is, how he looks. I'll say hello to him, and he'll look me up and down like, what do you want? Which is odd. But over there, it's just everybody's friendly, everybody speaks to each other, and they just look out for each other. It's just truly a community.
Yeah. Now, I grew up like that, what you was talking about. They're staying in the neighborhood, everybody knowing everybody. Kids are outside. And, yes, it is been a change. And I firmly believe that you talking about how we were in the 50s. Desegregation was one of the worst things that ever happened to our culture. The worst things that ever happened to us in business. I mean, if you go back and look at it, I mean, yes, I understand the racism and all the stuff that went along with that. And I get why them brothers and sisters fought against that. I get it. But the fact is that we got around someone else's culture and adopted someone else's way. And this is why we're screwed up, because every culture do things certain ways, and that's fine for their culture.
Right.
But for us, we have adopted this individualism, and it's literally destroyed us because we were family oriented. We were, always did for each other, knew who each other were, supported each other's businesses. Now you start a business in America as a Black person, the first person that's gonna be against you is not a racist. It's gonna be a Black person, like who he or who she thinks she is. I'm not making them rich and all this other stuff.
What's crazy? This is what I'm noticing too. So you have a lot of gentrification going on in Atlanta, and whenever a Black business opens up in an area that's facing gentrification or experiencing gentrification, It's funny, black people now get behind it and support it. But back when there was no before gentrification, black people want to support it. So I think a lot of it is, like you said, it's just for some reason since black people feel threatened of being displaced out of their neighborhoods, when a black business comes in, they completely support it now. That's what I'm experiencing in Atlanta. But before then, when black people were, I guess, were comfortable and weren't facing displacement, they wouldn't support black owned. Or like you said, they'll be the first people to hate on them. So you're right about the segregation aspect.
Yeah, I mean, it just like I said, and you hear others outside of our community saying, "Why are you saying that?" But the thing is, as we stated before, we don't even need to entertain their voices right about now, because we are in a dire position, and that's why on this platform I'm trying to connect Africa to us, because we have to be connected to our true culture, get back to our roots, because that's when we, like you stated, the most happy. Our families were more intact. Our children had more love and understanding and education, and we were just so much better when we actually lived more of a African lifestyle. To after segregation, that's when we got around the Caucasian more than what we should have. But with that said, brother, let people know exactly how they can find you on YouTube or other social media platforms.
Yeah, it's a search for Voodoo. It's all one word. Search for Voodoo. And that's on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Search for Voodoo. All one word. Because I know some people say, hey, Dynast, I searched for the word of Voodoo. I couldn't find it. No, it's just search for Voodoo. All one word. And the Voodoo is Uhuru. So search for Voodoo. Or just search my name, Dynast Amir, Dynastamir, and I'll pop up as well.
All right, make sure you search for that and go to his YouTube channel. He has a lot of great footage. I'm telling you, like I said, all the footage that he's posting, if Brother Sharif, which is my videographer, had a chance to get a hold of that, he could knock that down, make that to a great documentary, because you really have a documentary footage. And that's a great thing that you actually was filming, because some people go, but they don't film much.
Right.
And it lets us get at least a little look into African culture. So definitely, I definitely appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, I mean, my objective is just to, I guess, create one of the best, if not the best, Pan-African resources for the diaspora in Africa. So when it comes to media, travel, lifestyle, business, which is one area that a lot of people don't cover when it comes to doing business on the Pan-African front. I have my segment now on my page called Living and Doing Business in Africa. And we're hitting different countries and speaking to the people actually in the country. Me actually engaging Africans in Africa and speaking to them about what goes on in their country, how to be successful, what business opportunities. Black Americans or the diaspora who are interested in moving to Africa, what's the process of that? Just offering resources for for people who have a love of Africa for me and consider themselves African and are Pan-Africanness and who are part of the diaspora.
All right, so guys, make sure you check all those channels out. Contact this brother if you're interested in traveling, and please make sure to subscribe to this channel. We'll put the link to his channel in the pinned comment at the top. Go subscribe, enjoy the videos. Brother, thank you for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Phil. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.